What up, y'all? Rank and File podcast. I'm Dom Bei from Proof of Workforce with the legendary Chris Alaimo, also board member, Proof of Workforce. So lots of stuff going on. Been a minute. Let's get right into the action. Why don't you kick us off? Let's see. I have some ideas what you might bring, but let's see what you got.
Well, our boy Dylan LeClaire over at MetaPlanet, Japanese company, konnichiwa, everyone. Thank you for listening. They've acquired another 269.43 Bitcoin. So for a total of 26.3 million US dollars, achieving a Bitcoin yield. This is a new term that like Saylor's making popular this year or last year. So a Bitcoin yield of 15.3%, meaning that they have, when I did the math, I think they have like 1,700 Bitcoin. So basically they've got an additional 269 additional to that total. So they got 15.3% yield of Bitcoin. So that's, many Bitcoin investors like, tell me what fiat you're earning, tell me what Bitcoin you're earning relative to your balance sheet. So and Dylan, I'll quote him on Twitter. He said, after 10 months on the Bitcoin standard, MetaPlanet now owns approximately 1/10,340th of the supply. So almost 1/10,000th of the supply of the world's first and only absolutely scarce monetary asset. Shouts out to our boy Dylan LeClaire. I know they're like the MicroStrategy of Japan. They're the best performing stock over those last 10 months since joining on the Bitcoin standard. For those that don't know, MetaPlanet is this conglomerate that's like a real estate conglomerate. So they do a lot of real estate in Japan, and they've just been taking their free cash flow from revenue that they get from basically from renting income or from housing income going right into Bitcoin. So Dylan's been kind of leading the charge there. So excited for him. He was an old colleague of mine over at Bitcoin Magazine. Dom, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my initial thoughts are they don't want to be like the MicroStrategy right now of Japan, right? Trading down 20% on the month. That being said, you can't discount MicroStrategy's run, right? You got to zoom out, take the big picture. I know MetaPlanet's up thousands of percentages. And so really kudos to Dylan and pushing them deeper into having a balanced, sheet with killing the Bitcoin.
I'll add one thing to that. So you're saying, MicroStrategy's down like 20%. I think yesterday was Friday, February 20th. The stock market, or 21st, I apologize, February 21st. And the stock market lost almost $1 trillion in valuation yesterday. Everything across the board was red, getting hammered.
Biggest drop of 2025.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because it started off as such a good morning. I look at my calendar. I see 21 on the calendar. All I see is 21. I go, oh, okay, it's going to be a good day. I look at at Bitcoin. I occasionally check the price, Alaimo. Not frequently. Every once in a while.
Every once in a while. And
we're ripping towards being back above 100K. And then all of a sudden I go start doing stuff and 21. Can you do something for me? Not so much, and we kind of roll back down, but I know we're cruising back up. Speaking of copycats of MicroStrategy, Saylor at CPAC saying,
the way to think about Bitcoin is it's the most powerful digital network in the world. It is cyber power. If you want to dominate the next 100 years, just like the last 100 years is based upon dominating sea power, firepower, air power, space power, nuclear power. You want to dominate cyberspace. You want cyber power. It's the unstoppable network that no one can corrupt. And the use of the unstoppable network, among other things, is hundreds of trillions of dollars of capital moving from point A to point B. But the other use of the network is I can send a message which is unstoppable, and I can store information that is unstoppable, and I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the authenticity of an instruction or a document. No country, no company, no individual, not a trillion computers can corrupt that message. So if you want to own the future, you want to own cyberspace. How do you own cyberspace? You own Bitcoin, and then you run the Bitcoin networks. You mine Bitcoin, you own Bitcoin.
So Saylor making a big pitch there. Obviously, CPAC, not your average Bitcoiner crowd. And I think that's just another thing where, remember something like that, Alaimo, would have made like unbelievably huge news if you had a Saylor speaking at CPAC now, routine, and it's just like, whatever, you know,
I feel like it was
Saylor's.
swept under the rug. It's just like, yo, another day.
Yeah, and it's massive that he's speaking at that. I think Bukele spoke last year, right? He was the one, you know, they're saying taxes theft,
Yeah.
which was a huge bombshell. And you know, again, like CPAC, I don't know who's over there running the programming, but like they're definitely long Bitcoin, and they have some you know, that's huge for who spoke there. He also said, just real quick, Alaimo,
There's only room for one nation state to buy up 20% of the network. And obviously, I think it should be the United States. I think it will be the United States. It's a way for us to enrich ourselves and emerge as a creditor nation in a matter of a decade. It's also a way for us to ensure that we're the economic leaders in cyberspace and the digital economy for the next 100 years. And if we do that, every one of our allies will follow us, and then all of our enemies will end up having to buy into the network once it passes 10 or 20 million a coin, and they will enrich us.
pretty wild, just massive, you know, like bombshell. And obviously if the United States did that, like we're talking, I don't know, that's just insane. I think it's wishful thinking from Saylor, but I don't know. You know, he's in some conversations I'm not in.
I'm just gonna put my tinfoil hat on here, Dom. So follow me for a little bit. But you
Yeah.
know how like people always say, you know, MicroStrategy. It's based in Langley, Virginia, which is, you know, right near where some of the intelligence agency and, you know, some of the richest people in the country are, based out of the D.C. area. But everyone always used to joke, or the people that are hating on Saylor, you know, that basically saying like, yo, MicroStrategy's Bitcoin is the United States Bitcoin. Now last week you've got Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, as well as Trump being like, yo, if we're going to make some deals, we want to be in on the action. They're like, yo, in the strategic reserve or the strategic assets stockpile, that basically like, hey, if we're going to be giving away these shots, maybe we should have a piece of the action. We want a little bit of Moderna. We want 50% of TikTok. What if they're like, yo, in order to pump our bags, you know, these Bitcoin bags, what if we get some of MicroStrategy stock? I'm not saying, like I said, tinfoil hat, I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but it is just very interesting that they're saying that.
Well, it's funny if we're going to have hats on, you know, I think about this a lot. If you were the United States and you were going to stack Bitcoin and do it in a way that wouldn't tip off a nation, you know, you wouldn't tip off other countries to go, wait, before they execute on this, let's load up on as much as we can. The obvious route for that is to utilize a medium and an individual that you would expect massive accumulations. We've all seen that MicroStrategy, they've always stacked Bitcoin, but they've really accelerated. I mean, I feel like they went from 200,000 to 400,000 like that, much quicker than they built up to 200,000, which is interesting being that it's during a price run up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So that should tip you off that they're accelerating the purchase of Bitcoin, even with a bull run and higher prices. They're stacking as much, if not more, than they did through a bear market. You know, if you were going to do it, that would be the avenue, because no one's watching Saylor talk about, I'm going to buy as much Bitcoin as I can, and thinking, okay, you know, that this is new news. That's business as usual. So
Yeah.
I don't. We'll see how that plays out.
We'll let the CPAs and the CFOs figure out if like Trump like has a, you know, side deal with Saylor, being like, hey, you're gonna buy this in terms for the United States, and like you're gonna keep this as a separate pocket. And Saylor's like, yo, we're buying, but little do we know, like this is on the side, kind of a side bet. We get a little bit of yield on top of that to buy more Bitcoin that we're already buying. And then
100%.
like then Trump's like, yo, by the way, our good friend Michael Saylor, great CEO, great dude, helped buy the United States more Bitcoin. But yeah, that would be tinfoil hat to the max for sure.
And again, everyone always says like, oh, you know, that's MicroStrategy's the Bitcoin. Some people think that because they own MicroStrategy, it's their Bitcoin. Like they can't, you know, I mean, the company could transfer Bitcoin out of their company somewhere. I'm not saying they would and that it would ever get approved, but it's not the shareholders' Bitcoin. The shareholders own the value of the company. The company owns the Bitcoin and can do whatever they want with it. They can liquidate it. They can donate it. They can give it away. They can do anything. And I'm not saying that they would do that, but they have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So, like I said, not a lawyer, not a CPA or anything, but I understand a little bit of equity. So basically, anyone that would have a claim to the Bitcoin would be people that have debt of MicroStrategy. So when MicroStrategy offers a bond, they'd be the first claim, and there's hierarchies of those type of bonds. Then there's like Saylor's been offering convertible bonds, which are lower in that hierarchy. So they're basically offered a bond. In the event that they, they reach maturation, they roll over to stock or equity, and then below that is equity, and then, you kind of fall down the pecking order. But to your point, he's offered a lot of convertible debt, which is good because when it's convertible, that means that there's an equity component, so it means it's lower in the hierarchy. So there's less of a risk for Saylor to have to give up the Bitcoin. It's basically just converting if they hit the strike price into equity. But like you said, if someone had a bunch of MicroStrategy just straight up bonds and something were to happen in MicroStrategy, they would have a claim to the assets at MicroStrategy, which obviously Bitcoin is a large part of that.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. And again, not your keys, not your coin remains true. Also, a ton of calls on X for Saylor to join the growing movement of proof of reserve, right? And display how much Bitcoin he has. Speaking of, before we jump to your second item, which I want to try to guess, I want 3 chances to guess your second item, and I have an idea. Speak of proof of reserves, I was curious, and I thought, how much Bitcoin to gold does El Salvador own? And I came up, basically, El Salvador holds 4.96 times more Bitcoin than it holds gold. So just about 5 times. And it was cool to be able to check that out. The gold, that number's based on whatever the government says gold they have. But here's the cool thing about Bitcoin. The Bitcoin office out of El Salvador runs the tracker, and I can see exactly how much Bitcoin they have at the moment. And that address is audited in real time. And I don't need to do a Fort Knox audit on their Bitcoin. I just pop up the online and it's viewable. It's right there. So I thought that was cool, and kudos to the Bitcoin office for setting that up. But yeah, 5 times more Bitcoin than gold. I didn't run an analysis on other countries, but I don't know. I think it's a statement, right? These things don't happen in a void. So El Salvador puts a 5 times, more relevant priority on Bitcoin, its transparency, its value, than gold. I'm sure a lot of countries don't have anywhere near a ratio of that as far as Bitcoin to gold.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, that's very cool. And, I know Trump has been talking about wanting to audit Fort Knox, obviously, in conjunction with a lot of what Elon says and the Doge team. So, what if he busts into Fort Knox and there's no gold, or, if there is gold and then they're just like, rocks that are painted gold, that would be pretty funny. So we'll see.
Another dude, these things are just happening again. Things that he's talking about Fort Knox. What did he say? He said, we're going to go into Fort Knox and they better have the gold. It better be there. I hope it's there. If we need to make sure the gold's there. You're like, all right, what's going on, dude?
Then he's saying he's getting rid of the IRS, which I mean would be wild. I don't think there's a shot in hell that happens. But hey, Trump loves to, overpromise, and we'll see what happens, what he delivers for sure. All right.
Yeah. Okay. For your next item, give me 3 guesses. Okay. Okay. Ross tweets out support for Roger Ver.
No, I was going to include that, but not on there. No.
Okay. Gosh, I know what it is. I'm just playing like a suspense game and actually really talking about. How about this one? The Lummis tweet about "and so it begins." No, not that one.
Not that one.
Bybit meltdown.
No.
What?
Yeah, I gotta go privacy, guy. I gotta go privacy, my guy.
You're going privacy over Bybit meltdown? Come on, bro. What's going on?
Well, it's a good one.
Okay, here we go. Privacy.
All right,
the tornado is coming through.
The tornado is coming. Not Tornado Cash. That's actually for another week. That'll be next week. But no, obviously Elon Musk is always saying he's a free speech champion. He's, he brought free speech back. Well, I do think that there were strides in the right direction upon him buying Twitter, now X. But he is blocking signal links. So in the past, You know, he was blocking Substack. He was blocking Nostr, go figure. You know, a few years ago, he said, like, oh, Nostr's a threat. He's blocking Facebook things. But as of 4 days ago, it reported that X is blocking Signal links. So people that are, you know, Signal is an encrypted messaging app. It's actually, in my opinion, probably one of the only ones that's actually legit, with Telegram, the old CEO, or not old CEO, the CEO being jailed, and basically it seems like a backdoor was put in there. There was a lot of suspicion about that even before he was jailed, that there are backdoors to Telegram. Obviously, WeChat is a chat app that's based in China. That is, you know, obviously they can see all the message traffic that's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't even trust WhatsApp. You know, Google, you know, they changed their motto from don't be evil to they got rid of that, scrap that, we don't need that anymore. And obviously they have WhatsApp. Between WeChat,
doesn't I thought Meta owns WhatsApp. Did they sell it?
oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. Facebook. Sorry, they own WhatsApp, not Google. So, but yeah, still, I don't trust Zuckerberg with WhatsApp. So there's WhatsApp, WeChat.
But Chris, he said sorry. He apologized and said sorry for complying with the government stuff. That doesn't bring the trust back for you.
No, it doesn't. And the other thing is, Signal is it's an open source software, so meaning that anyone can look at it, audit the code, and the encryption that they use is one that, to our knowledge, has not been broken or has a backdoor. Where a lot of these other black box, so to speak, WeChat, WhatsApp, or even Telegram, they're not open source protocols. So there's no way to look. You kind of just have to trust the founder or trust the people that own it. So obviously, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter is actively blocking links to Signal, a popular encrypted messaging service widely used by journalists and government employees for secure communications. And I can already see Elon's like, well, we don't want to do things in a vacuum. That's the point of Doge. We're trying to reveal what's going on. But it's just very weird that, like, he doesn't own Signal. There's no way for him to, like, if you're sharing a link there, you're just like, hey, message me on Signal. We want to, you know, do encrypted chat. Versus if you're messaging someone on Twitter or on X, those are not encrypted. Elon Musk can see Dom and I sending us hilarious memes that we send back and forth. You know, even I've seen, you know, maybe Elon uses some of our memes in the ones that he tweets out. I'm just saying they're good memes, but I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, Signal, a lot more people are using it. It's interesting, you know, in the last couple of years, you see when your phone book, someone pops up on Signal, you know, and you're like, oh, someone's getting on that Signal train. You know, maybe they worried about, you know, text getting hacked or things like that. So yeah, that seems to be in line. And again, Alaimo, kudos to you. You were definitely ahead on the Apple privacy news, which is really making more rounds in the mainstream media about the UK and Apple taking a huge hit on privacy on that front. Which I'm not even gonna get into the details. Listeners are gonna have to go back to the previous episode and hear my boy Alaimo on the front lines of that. So, okay, dude. I mean, privacy I should have known. But let's really quick dive into a very brief, and I don't know a lot of the details, but Bybit, massive hack, over $1 billion of Ethereum taken, and you got CEOs going on there being like, yo, I used the Ledger signer and multi-sig, and I got spoof attacked. Then you got them saying, hey guys, we're about to move $3 billion, but don't worry, it's not hacked this time. This is, you know, you have... talks about Ethereum rolling back the chain, which is like, wait a minute, transactions aren't final on Ethereum? No, we can roll back the chain and undo transactions. That's wild. And so lots of chaos going on with that. Shout out to Joe Carlasari, who I thought had one of the good tweets where it said, hey, $1 billion meltdown and massive exchange hack loss, and they can't push Bitcoin below 95K. I mean, back in the day, can you imagine, Alaimo? This would have crashed Bitcoin and sunk it. But obviously, your boy Saylor's at CPAC, just, you know, talking about you want to own cyberspace. The brand, it continues to run on and really portray brand resilience there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I've looked into the story a little bit, and I don't know all the details, but, you know, shouts out to our boy Rob Hamilton over at Anchor Watch. That is not a boating company. That is That's not a boating company. He's running a secure Bitcoin, insurance company over there, along with Becca. But he had a great tweet that goes, "This goes to the complexity of ETH. You are signing state updates to a contract, but the complexity of ETH prevents the ability to analyze what exactly you're agreeing to. So I am somewhat shocked that even though the complexity of ETH, an enterprise does not have a much more elaborate preparatory process to stage signing. With my little knowledge of how ETH works, I know 2 to 3 steps on how you'd be able to mitigate this and still use ledgers. Total incompetence." So basically, that's our boy Rob Hamilton making fun of Bybit and just kind of the incompetence of the leadership over there. Maybe not fair, but it's one thing to point at the signing device, which I don't agree with a lot of things that Ledger does as is, but definitely something to be on the lookout for. It's not necessarily the signing device itself. It was more the complexity of the contract that's used with ETH. And that just goes to the whole complexity of the ecosystem of ETH in general. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Dom.
No. I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, that amount of money hacked, there's going to be a lot of different factors, and you'd hope to think that, the team is not the team asleep at the wheel, and probably a complex hack and all that stuff. With that said, the biggest takeaway is the talk about the rollback of the chain, which I don't know much about the dynamics, but again, what are we talking about? This is proof of stake. We've done this before. It's called the banking system, and you can undo stuff, reverse stuff, and all this kind of BS. So that's a dangerous thing when people can decide what's a valid transaction and what's not. We've been there. We've seen that already. So yeah. Speaking of, okay, there's tons out there on Bybit so people can know. But again, Bitcoin rolls on, shrugs off $1 billion hack like nothing, and just remind people that this isn't Bitcoin. Unfortunately, a lot of mainstream people, they see hack and they see any kind of digital asset and they go, oh, that's why Bitcoin is bad. You have to push people to look past that and continue to learn about Bitcoin, or they're going to miss some key things. Speaking of legacy things, De Beers, Diamond Miner, on the ropes, brother. They had a write down of $2.9 billion, so 3 times as much as the hack for Bybit. That's just a write down. And if you don't know, De Beers is the big diamond miner that coined the phrase, "A diamond is forever." Well, it might not be forever. That phrase was coined in 1947, and here we are about 70 years later.
The diamond's forever, but De Beers might not be forever. That's for sure.
Well, I don't know, because the reason that they had the write down is these basically lab produced diamonds out of China. They're making it rain, Alaimo. They're making it rain. And these lab produced diamonds are getting better and better to where you can't distinguish from real diamonds. And Fugazis, man, it's just, this all ties in. How does this intersect with Ethereum and the hack and all that stuff? Because there's only one thing that's forever. That's Bitcoin. And, there's all these other knockoffs and all these things that can be manufactured. Again, scarcity. We know the diamond industry manufactured scarcity. However, Bitcoin is true scarcity. It's not manufactured. It just exists mathematically. Yeah. It's scarce.
Yeah, and while imagine going to be a jeweler and looking at diamonds your whole life, and you're 30, 40 years into your career, and it's like, I can't even tell these lab-grown diamonds from the fake or the real ones. Well, Bitcoin, you could tell with a $200 laptop, you can verify it's actually Bitcoin. It's not something that's lying to you. Gold. They're saying there was in London, this was a famous story probably 4 or 5 years ago on the London COMEX exchange, or the LME, sorry, the London Metals Exchange. They found they were keeping a bunch of gold bars for JP Morgan Chase, I believe, and then they did an analysis. They drilled into it or to take a sample, and then they found out that it was basically just gold, like an inch of gold all around the lining of these tungsten bars or these really cheap metal or stones. And they're like, yep, so that was billions of dollars that JP Morgan thought they had in their books that they had to write off. And even obviously they do a lot of tests with gold. They scrape the top, they do an x-ray. Even there was enough gold in between the bar and the gold plating that was around it that it didn't it didn't penetrate all the way through to the rock in the middle. So yeah, I mean, like you said, they can basically be spoofed, whether it's diamonds, whether it's gold, whether it's fiat. You can print that out of, JP Morgan takes his keyboard and smashes it on his face a few times, adds a couple more zeros to the balance sheet of the United States government or the Treasury. So yeah, just Bitcoin's the only thing that you can verify with true scarcity.
Yeah, well, two things on that. This is why, coming back to Saylor, right? He's saying if you want to own a piece of cyberspace, you want to own Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin is the true mathematical value of cyberspace, you're gonna need to own it for certain things in that space. So again, these subtle things that we gloss over as Bitcoiners because we just accept them as true, true digital scarcity, true transparency. These are huge, groundbreaking innovations, and we keep seeing real world examples on how these things fail. Diamond industry, right? De Beers on the ropes because you have these fake diamonds coming in. Ethereum, right? Getting hacked. They might roll it back. It's all this like make believe, non-mathematically provable,
Fugazi, you know what I mean?
Fugazi. What's a Fugazi? What do you mean? What's a Fugazi? And then the other thing, CoinKite, if you're listening, dude, get a Sats chip or something in a Bitcoin ring, because honestly, Alaimo, if you're getting engaged, are you going to buy a diamond Fugazi, or are you going to buy a Bitcoin Sats chip with a certain amount of Bitcoin in a ring that is going to be truly forever? I mean, I don't know, what would you do? I think that's a market, dude. Maybe we should erase this podcast because this is a multi-billion-dollar idea. If someone can make Bitcoin engagement rings that still look nice but have true Bitcoin in them, we're off to the races, dude.
A little hologram ring, like a hologram diamond, but then on the bottom you got the Sats chip and you just tap it to pay with stuff.
Dude, I mean, even if there's if it's not usable as a currency, like again, imagine getting an engagement ring and then 40 years later you're like, hey, what's going on with that thing? And it's like, we're good, so I don't know. I tweeted that out. I think it got like 2 likes, but if someone's listening, you just have $1 billion business idea. Me and Alaimo have enough ideas we're juggling right now, so we're going to just leave that to the people of the streets. Kind of bringing us home here as we push up against the 20-minute work break. Gosh, we're pushing 25 minutes, so sorry, folks that have to punch their time cards and head back in. Again, this is the Rank and File podcast. Cynthia Lummis. And so it begins, tweets Lummis, about the committee hearing titled Exploring Bipartisan Legislative Frameworks for Digital Assets. It's set for Wednesday, February 26, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's a subcommittee hearing on Bitcoin and crypto legislation. There's lots of talk about reserves. There's going to be a lot of things that come out of this subcommittee hearing. So I think, again, we're going to have a lot more headlines, things that would have broke the internet back in Bitcoin's earlier days that now they're just calling that a Wednesday in Bitcoin now. If there's a subcommittee hearing and a sitting United States senator saying, and so it begins, and is, actively supporting a Bitcoin strategic reserve bill, that's called a Wednesday in Bitcoin. It's no longer breaking news. It's just a Wednesday. So that's going to be interesting to see. And, it remains to be seen, tinfoil hat or not, how or if the United States is going to, stack and maintain a healthy amount of Bitcoin for its future. What else you got, Alaimo? Anything else? I mean, I have a couple things that left stranded. I had pensions and retirement funds are starting to integrate AI into retirement planning as a little experiment. I went on to Grok. By the way, have you messed with Grok Unhinged yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't messed with it at all.
Okay, I'm not promoting Grok, and I know Elon is out there suppressing signal links and privacy and stuff, but Grok Unhinged is wild, dude. It's kind of like, remember Tars from Interstellar? Tars, put humor setting at a 4. You can throttle it up, so you can go from Grok Unhinged to where it's actively trolling you. And I basically took a look at what I asked Grok what it recommended as far as assets in a retirement fund. Not like that's what's being used for pension, but it gave kind of a neutral to non-favorable view of Bitcoin. It said, Bitcoin's not mandatory for a healthy retirement. It's still not proven. It said it's still not proven as a store of value, but it said there's a lot of stuff on why it could be considered, and said if you're younger and have a little more risk tolerance, that you could definitely make a percentage allocation to Bitcoin. Long story short, it seems like AI remains, it still is just a collection of different opinions out there. And there are some opinions that still view Bitcoin as a high risk, extremely volatile asset. And so it'll be interesting to see how AI makes recommendations. Meanwhile, the brand of Bitcoin continues to build strength and longevity as a retirement solution for individuals looking to maintain their time, energy, and purchasing power.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's been a lot of talks. I forget who wrote the articles. I don't know if it was like Parker Lewis or Drew Bansal or whoever of Unchained. Parker's now at Zappright. But I know that there's been many talks that people believe AI and Bitcoin are going to become synonymous. Noah Ballerly talks about this as well. Basically, that AI, are they going to use the fiat dollar? Are they going to use this crappy contracting language that is called Ethereum as they get like swept or stolen from? No, they want to use something that's fully backed by encryption, that's backed by the power of SHA-256, that's backed by what protects nuclear codes and banking and, the internet privacy as we know it. So I think it's only a matter of time before the AIs go from general AIs, just like kind of, scouring the internet and giving you a response, to when like general artificial intelligence, when they're like, oh shit, like I'm a computer, I need to use money to buy things. Bitcoin is the best way to do that. Like I don't want to use fiat, and then someone can, with the stroke of a keyboard, can wipe away or pull back the money, quote unquote, that I have. So I do think in the future AIs will use Bitcoin to way to transact. Like, hey, you give this AI bot a task, like, hey, buy the groceries for me and my wife and my kids this week, and the bot just uses Bitcoin, wires it to them, gets Uber Eats or Uber delivery service or whatever. So I do think the way of the future is we should be scared when AI is really saying Bitcoin's the only money, because then they're waking up to basically the smarts of how ingenious this is, instead of basically giving the economist version of Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's not really in a portfolio, and all of that. So I don't know.
From parroting to free thinking AI, that's a great point. That hey, when AI starts really,
that's
there's
all
always going to be.
That's all.
Yeah.
They're not going to want stock. They're not going to want bonds. They know that they can be confiscated. Like,
there's always going to be a premium on truth. And so the best AI model that will win out will be, number one, have a brand recognition of being true, right? Having truth as far as the best, most reliable data and information, and then having its own ability to analyze. So if you go into AI and you go, what's my retirement thing? You don't want some regurgitated article that someone wrote for Men's Journal or The Economist. You want a machine that can outthink the market, right? That's all. It's all about figuring out a way to be like ahead of the market. So to your point, if they want AI to run on fiat or these other proof of stake mechanisms, they're going to have to program AI to be either dumb or a liar. And so either one is not going to be desirable by folks who know better. And someone will make a model, whether it's an open source decentralized model that goes, hey, this is true, and it analyzes. And so, yeah, that's a great point. Once AI starts recommending Bitcoin as the only sound money, we should buckle up, because AI is going to go on a tear, dude. So, okay, cool. Well, hey, great ripping with you, dude. And I see we both have the Silk Road sweatshirts on. I can't get mine out of there we go. So yeah, dude. And I don't know, we didn't get into Ross tweeting out about free Roger Ver, and I know a lot of people have negative views on Roger Ver. My only take on that was, hey, no one knows what Ross went through and how Roger may or may not have helped him. Only Ross does, and Ross felt compelled enough to tweet out some kind of support for him. I think you can leave it at that. Whether people want to support Roger or not, you can't look at it like you were in jail for 11 years and maybe someone did a selfless act to try to get you out of prison. So yeah, we'll definitely tie in on that. But
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, this is actually Roger's second time in jail. He was actually in jail, I think, 12 years ago for fireworks charges and basically using unlicensed fireworks. I forget where he was, if he was in Singapore or somewhere abroad that was
Lake Havasu or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then the other thing is, I know Joe Carlasari, and he's actually overdue for coming on the podcast, but he talked about his lawyers that gave him the recommendation to, this is back in 2014 when Roger was giving up his U.S. citizenship. There's an exit tax that was put in during the Clinton administration in the 90s that basically if Americans want to give up their passport and they want to get a new residency or citizenship, that when they give up their U.S. passport, I think they owe like 40% of their assets at the time of giving up their residency or their passport to get another one. So his lawyer at the time was like, Bitcoin was still new in 2014, or new to the scene. There wasn't really much guidance in terms of tax advice, but his lawyer, like I know Joe Carlasari would rip into the lawyer or two lawyers that gave him advice, basically being like, these guys should be in jail right next alongside Roger. Basically like, yeah, you just kind of guesstimate. It's like that. If there's one thing the tax man hates to say is guesstimate on whatever your taxes are. But yeah, he could definitely give a more in-depth breakdown. Like I said, we're not lawyers, Joe is. So.
Yeah. Joe Carlasari, if you're out there and you're not on the Rank and File podcast in less than 2 weeks, we will find you. Like the movie Taken, we'll find you in Chicago on a run or something. And this is not a threat. I didn't say what we're going to do to you when we find you. We could give you a hug and just say, hey, how are you? We could show you some diamonds and see if you know whether they're lab grown or if they're real. We could do anything, but just know, like, you got to come on the show and that's final. So, like, please, man, the people have been writing in. I think we got 17,000 emails on Joe coming on, which was crazy. We didn't have a celebrity call in today, which we had lined up, but the celebrity called in and said, if Joe Carlasari is not on the show, I'm pulling out. Ego stuff. I don't understand what's going on. Not with Joe, with the celebrity. So Joe, like, he's a rank and file guy, needs to come on. And yeah. So with that said, we'll get Joe on. And Alaimo, other than that, to all the workers and wage earners out there, continue sorting through the headlines, fight the fear and emotion, and seek out quality truth on Bitcoin. Other workers and wage earners depend on you to find Bitcoin, so help them out, give them good information, and continue to learn. We've had tons of good things this week on self-custody. Never bypass learning about self-custody ever. Whether you decide to do it or not, Bitcoin found a way to drastically reduce, if not eliminate, third-party risk. And I always say, Alaimo, if you're going to ride or die, depend on yourself, dude. You can live with that. You can live with things happening and you go, that was on me. It's much tougher to just be sitting at home doing everything right, and then some knuckleheads over at Bybit or something, or I don't know, they get hacked and you're like, yeah, thanks for playing. Do not pass go. You're done. Back to the drawing board. That doesn't feel good. No. So never overlook self-reliance. And there's a tool for you to do that. So go ahead and do it.
Definitely. All right. Peace out, everyone. Stay humble, stack sats. Talk to you later.